my question was going to be around when you're first diagnosed. In my brain, I was like thinking I was playing a bit of a blame game with myself. Like I was thinking I've done something wrong. What could I potentially have done that could have been a preventative from me being in this space? And I was like, was I working too much? Was I not exercising? Was I not eating healthy? So I guess what I like would have loved, or I probably did hear lots, but I wasn't listening because I just couldn't. Because obviously I had cancer, so I'm like, nothing you can tell me is going to make me feel better. But what would, I guess, for someone that is having it being really harsh on themselves, like what can you guys say? Like, what, it's not the person's fault. Like they've done nothing wrong specifically, but when they're in that state of mind, like what would you guys be wanting to say to that person or tell them?
She'll be
Are
right.
there preventatives? You know, like
No.
is it a thing? Is it just like random?
We know that there are things that can predispose towards cancer. There's genetic things. There could be environmental things. You know, if you're exposed to radiation or previous chemotherapy, and that's which is a bit of a sobering thought when you're giving you so much chemotherapy. But you know, there are things that can cause it. They're usually things that other people did. It's not usually something you did to yourself.
And quite often, sorry, to add to that, you guys are almost too young for that.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So like that sort of comes into play when you're, you know,
even if you'd smoked a couple of cigarettes, it wasn't going to be that.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's the thing about, you know, cancer is in young people is that it's nothing that you've done because you know you haven't lived enough life yet to have done that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, even the environmental exposures that we talk about.
Yeah, smoking and alcohol and things like that. But yeah, your age group, there's no way you're going to manage to have done that to yourself. It's really just bad luck, and that's a terrible answer.
It is.
But it's
a real one.
It's real. It's a terrible answer, but it's real. There's usually nothing that we can identify that caused it. It's a chance occurrence, and it's just shitty luck. What was I going to say?
Well, I think that kind of like then also leads into how you choose to have your mindset, like throughout your journey as well. Like, you know, I always had the mindset, you know, I've been dealt these really shitty cards. This sucks, but, you know, it's how you play them. It's how you know, it's, you know, you can't, what's that quote? It's like, you can't change the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And it's like...
That's
powerful.
So I think, you know, it's like, that's also like, you know, how am I going to play this game? Yeah, like how am I going to keep my head on my shoulders throughout?
It's completely normal to play that blame game. So was there something that I did? Is there something I could have done to prevent this? And the answer is usually no.
And you kind of talked about genetics, like.
I know I mentioned that, and I wish I hadn't.
But like,
you talked about that as well.
Is it? Yeah. Well, is it an option? Like, if you, because obviously my sister went through this, so I see my sister with her through her whole journey, which Louise also was a part of. Sister things. Could that have been an option, and is it an option for like my baby? Like she's 7 now, but she's a girl now. And I said, do you remember that time I said to my dad, I was like, "You've got cursed daughters."
That's right.
Because and then Sean gave me like the deadliest look in the world. But I was like, you know, like I'd lost my sister just months before that, and then my first sister passed away when I was a lot younger. So naturally, yeah, cursed. But I was like, can I break a curse? Like, is there a curse that can be broken? Can my daughter be genetically tested to see if that's gonna, you know?
Well, yeah. I suppose if you're going to speak figuratively like that, you can be genetically cursed. There are things that can be passed on that will predispose to cancer. We checked. I don't think we found anything in your case. But we know about the BRCA genes for breast cancer, things like that, and that's quite well understood. I'm not going to talk about that because I will make up an awful mess of it because I don't know enough about it. But there are mutations. There are genetic mutations that we can identify, like P53 mutation, for example. If you're unlucky enough to be born with one of those, then it's more likely that you might develop a form of cancer as you get older. And RB1 mutations with the retinoblastoma gene. There's things that we've known about for a long time that can predisposed to different kinds of cancer. We checked and we didn't find anything. There are, we've got really fancy techniques now, next generation sequencing, which we'll do on, if we've got a patient with acute myeloid leukemia, for example. We can run those leukemic cells through the machine and get a sort of genetic profile of all the, there might be more than one abnormal mutation that predisposed to that particular type of leukemia. And if we find it in, sometimes we can find it in sufficient quantities to be suspicious that maybe it's something that was inherited, and we can check for that. And I think we did that in your case, but maybe not. Anyway, that's not something for the video, I don't think. But sometimes we will identify things, and then we can go back and we check a buccal swab, say, from the inside of the cheek, and just check and see if that mutation is present in your normal cells. And if it's not, then that's fine. It's not a genetic thing that you can pass on. If we do find something like that, then it might be something that we need to think about for other family members, or for when you're thinking about having a family. So we're increasingly capable of finding things like that now, and that's gonna be something that doctors are gonna have to deal with and learn how to communicate that and understand it themselves, so that we can actually move forward. But that's the future, or that's part of the future for medicine. It's not a blame thing though, is it? But I suppose if you're trying to understand what caused a cancer, that's one of the avenues we can go down, and it's something that we can, if we understand it better, then we can do something about it in the future. But generally speaking, the answer to your question is no. It wasn't anything you did. There wasn't anything that you could have done to have prevented it, and you did all the right things. You presented when you did.